In December 1944, Adolf Hitler rolled the dice on Germany's last major offensive in the West. His ambitious plan called for a massive counterattack through the Ardennes forest, aimed at splitting Allied forces and recapturing the vital port of Antwerp. The operation's success hinged on one critical factor: the Sixth Panzer Army breaking through American lines in what would become known as the North Shoulder of the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans concentrated their best remaining forces for this decisive blow. General Joseph Sepp Dietrich's Sixth Panzer Army included elite SS Panzer Divisions, battle-hardened from years of combat on the Eastern Front. Dietrich himself dismissed American opposition with contempt, telling paratroop commander Colonel Graf Friedrich von der Heide that the American lines were held by a couple of bank managers and Jew boys. This arrogant assessment would prove catastrophically wrong. What the Germans encountered instead were two American infantry divisions, one untested, one veteran, who would demonstrate courage, tactical skill, and determination that would doom Hitler's desperate gamble from its very first hours. The American positions, the 99th Infantry Division, new to combat and holding an impossibly wide 19-mile front, occupied positions that military textbook writers would consider a recipe for disaster. Its platoon-sized strong points were scattered too far apart for mutual support, mostly hidden within dense forest that negated American advantages in long-range firepower. The division's three regiments, the 393rd, 394th, and 395th, were stretched thin, with only one battalion in reserve. To their north, the veteran 2nd Infantry Division occupied a small sector opposite Wallerscheid, preparing to attack the formidable West Wall fortifications. On December 13th, they had launched their assault, and by December 15th had breached the first line of German defenses. The 2nd Division's presence was unknown to German planners, an intelligence failure that would prove crucial. The terrain itself would play a decisive role. Dense forests, limited road networks, and steep hills channeled movement into predictable routes. The villages of Krinkelt and Rocherath, the twin villages, sat astride the main road network, making them critical objectives. Control of these villages and the roads running through them would determine whether German armor could break into open country beyond. The storm breaks. At dawn on December 16, 1944, German artillery shattered the morning quiet. The attacking force included the 12th and 277th Volksgrenadier Divisions, supported by the 12th SS Panzer Division and 3rd Luftwaffe Parachute Division. Despite their impressive titles, many of these units were shadows of their former selves. The Volksgrenadier Divisions consisted of hastily trained replacements scraped together from wherever bodies could be found. The vaunted SS Panzer units were under strength, short of experienced officers, and equipped with a mix of worn equipment. The 12th Volksgrenadier Division, despite these limitations, was considered one of Germany's best remaining infantry units. Its commander, Major General Gerhard Engel, Hitler's former adjutant, had secured a full complement of 14,800 men and new STG-44 assault rifles. Yet even this favored unit would struggle against American determination. The initial attacks achieved mixed success. South of Hofen, German infantry quickly overran two platoons of Company K 3rd Battalion, 393rd Infantry, forcing the Americans back. Further south, the 1st Battalion, 393rd Infantry, initially repulsed attacks with devastating defensive fire from prepared positions, but Company C, positioned deep in the forest, was gradually overwhelmed in close combat, where German submachine guns proved effective. The intelligence and reconnaissance platoons stand, perhaps no unit better exemplified American fighting spirit than the intelligence and reconnaissance platoon of the 394th Infantry Regiment. Positioned on high ground overlooking Losheim, this small unit of fewer than 20 men faced the entire 3rd Luftwaffe Parachute Division, attempting to open a route for Kampfgruppe Piper, the spearhead tasked with racing to the Meuse River. For almost 20 hours, this tiny force held their position against overwhelming odds, disrupting German timetables and buying precious time for American forces to react. Their heroic stand earned them the Presidential Unit Citation, the smallest unit ever to receive this honor. Their sacrifice revealed that the supposedly elite German Parachute Division was no longer the formidable force it had once been. Crisis and response. By midday on December 16th, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. 7 of the 99th Division's 9 infantry battalions, plus supporting artillery, were north of the Twin Villages, with only one viable escape route. German forces had penetrated between units, threatening to cut off and destroy much of 2 American divisions. Major General Walter Robertson, commanding the 2nd Infantry Division, grasped the danger faster than his peers. A combat veteran with excellent tactical instincts, Robertson began taking decisive action even before receiving official orders. When his request to cancel the ongoing attack was denied by higher headquarters, he began repositioning forces on his own initiative. He moved the 3rd Battalion, 23rd Infantry, to defend the Twin Villages and prepared his other units for the withdrawal he knew must come. Robertson's foresight proved critical. While the 99th Division's commander, Major General Walter Lauer, seemed slow to recognize the crisis, reporting that night that his units held practically the same positions they had at dawn. Robertson was already planning what he called a skin-the-cat maneuver to extract American forces from the closing German trap. The withdrawal begins. On December 17th, Robertson finally received permission to withdraw to Elsenborn Ridge, dominant high ground 4 miles west. The withdrawal would be one of the most difficult military maneuvers possible, a daylight retreat while in contact with an aggressive enemy. Success required keeping control of the roads through the Twin Villages while pulling back artillery, then infantry in careful sequence. Robertson's plan was masterful. The reserve battalion of the 38th Infantry would move first to defend Krinkelt's southern edge. Artillery would displace to positions where it could support the withdrawal. Then forward battalions would move south through the Twin Villages in sequence, with tanks and tank destroyers interspersed for protection. Acting again on his own authority, Robertson attached the 3 battalions of the 395th Infantry to his division, ensuring unified command during the critical withdrawal. This decision, technically exceeding his authority, demonstrated the initiative that characterized successful American commanders. The Twin Villages become a cauldron. As American units withdrew on December 17th, German forces pressed forward aggressively. The 12th SS Panzer Division, committed substantial tank and infantry forces, attempting to seize the twin villages and cut off retreating Americans. What followed was some of the most confused and desperate fighting of the entire war. The villages became a nightmarish battlefield. German and American tanks dueled at point-blank range between houses. Infantry fought room to room with grenades and automatic weapons. Artillery from both sides pulverized buildings. Burning vehicles and structures cast an eerie glow over the battlefield, while flares overhead added to the surreal atmosphere. Lieutenant John Granville, artillery liaison officer with the 1st Battalion, 9th Infantry, called in devastating barrages to stop German advances. Given priority for fires from 7 artillery battalions, 4 divisional and 3 corps, Granville directed steel rain that shattered German attacks. American artillery, with its sophisticated fire control system and excellent communications, proved the great equalizer against German numbers. Heroism at every level. Individual acts of extraordinary courage characterized the American defense. First Lieutenant Stephen Tupper, commanding Company Cape 9th Infantry, called artillery directly on his own position as it was being overrun. He was never seen again. Mortar crews dropped rounds dangerously close to their own positions. When Germans approached within 15 yards, tank crews engaged German panzers at suicidal ranges to protect withdrawing infantry. The 1st Battalion, 9th Infantry bore the brunt of German attacks east of the villages. Already exhausted from days of combat in freezing conditions, these men held their positions against repeated tank infantry assaults. When finally authorized to withdraw on December 18th, they were so closely engaged that movement seemed impossible. Salvation came from a passing platoon of Sherman tanks, whose leader eagerly accepted the invitation to fight. In a brief, violent engagement, the Shermans destroyed 3 German tanks and covered the infantry's withdrawal. 2/3 of the battalion became casualties, but their sacrifice allowed other units to establish solid defensive positions. Their courage exemplified what made American soldiers so formidable, not just training or equipment, but a determination to protect their comrades regardless of cost. The German failure unfolds. By December 18th, German commanders recognized their offensive's critical first phase had failed. The 3 designated routes through the North Shoulder remained firmly in American hands. Hitler's rigid insistence that units follow prescribed routes without deviation prevented exploitation of early successes. When opportunities arose to outflank American positions, German commanders lacked the flexibility to seize them. The German assault revealed fundamental weaknesses in their late-war army. Volk's grenadier units, despite numerical superiority, lacked the training and leadership to coordinate complex attacks. Poor artillery coordination wasted much of their firepower advantage. The absence of tactical flexibility, a hallmark of earlier German successes, doomed attacks to costly frontal assaults against prepared positions. Most critically, German planners grossly underestimated American fighting quality and mobility. They expected a static defense by demoralized troops, not the aggressive, flexible response they encountered. American commanders at every level, from Robertson's strategic vision to squad leaders making tactical decisions, demonstrated initiative that overwhelmed German planning. The withdrawal to Elsenborn Ridge on December 19th American forces began their final withdrawal from the twin villages. The movement, conducted with careful planning despite the chaotic situation, demonstrated American organizational superiority. Units disengaged in sequence, covered by artillery and rear guards. By dawn on December 20th, American forces occupied strong positions on Elsenborn Ridge. The 12th SS Panzer Division, bloodied and exhausted, could only watch as their opponents slipped away. What remained of German armor began withdrawing, tacitly admitting defeat. Volksgrenadier units moved forward to maintain pressure, but their half-hearted attacks against the new American positions were easily repulsed. Analyzing victory. The successful defense of the North Shoulder resulted from multiple factors that revealed American strengths and German weaknesses. American artillery proved devastatingly effective, with forward observers like Lieutenant Granville coordinating massive firepower with speed and accuracy impossible for German forces to match. The integration of tanks, tank destroyers, and infantry in combined arms teams multiplied combat power beyond what pure numbers would suggest. Individual American soldiers demonstrated remarkable tactical competence. Squad leaders made decisions that German doctrine reserved for company commanders. This decentralization allowed rapid exploitation of opportunities and quick responses to threats. When communications failed, as they often did in the confused fighting, junior leaders acted on their own initiative, usually making sound tactical choices. The contrast between commanders was equally stark. Robertson's performance ranks among the finest divisional-level leadership in the European theater. His anticipation of events, willingness to act on his own initiative, and masterful handling of the withdrawal saved 2 divisions from potential destruction. German commanders, constrained by rigid orders and lacking flexibility, could only pursue prescribed plans, even when circumstances clearly demanded adaptation. The strategic impact. The German failure at the North Shoulder doomed their entire Ardennes offensive. Unable to secure routes for their armor, following units created massive traffic jams that provided perfect targets for Allied aircraft once weather cleared. Kampfgruppe Piper, cut off from supplies after its initial penetration, eventually abandoned its vehicles and retreated on foot. The myth that Germany counted on captured American fuel has been thoroughly debunked. They had nearly 5 million gallons stockpiled, but couldn't deliver it through the clogged road network. For the American Army, the North Shoulder demonstrated that its soldiers could match anyone in combat effectiveness. The 99th Infantry Division, in its first battle, performed magnificently under impossible circumstances. Their baptism of fire against elite German units proved American training methods could produce soldiers equal to any challenge. Conclusion. Between December 13th to 19th, 1944, 2 American infantry divisions accomplished what German planners considered impossible. The veteran 2nd Infantry Division penetrated fortified west wall positions, conducted an 8-mile daylight withdrawal under enemy pressure, pivoted to face a new direction, held critical positions for 2 days against superior forces, then successfully withdrew to new defensive positions. The novice 99th Infantry Division, outnumbered and disadvantageously positioned, held long enough for reinforcements to arrive and the defense to solidify. Their combined stand at the North Shoulder represents American military excellence at its finest, not through overwhelming material superiority, though American artillery and logistics certainly helped, but through leadership, initiative, tactical skill, and raw courage. German commanders learned that American soldiers were neither the bank managers and Jew boys of Nazi propaganda, nor the soft, comfort-loving weaklings they expected. Lieutenant General Courtney Hodges, 1st Army commander, captured the significance in his commendation. What the 2nd Infantry Division has done in the last 4 days will live forever in the history of the United States Army. The successful defense of the North Shoulder proved that American soldiers, whether veteran or novice, could stand against the best Germany could muster and emerge victorious through skill, determination, and courage that transformed a potential disaster into a decisive defensive victory.